I read Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie because it was recommended to me, and when I was told I could read the book through the themes of either gender or race, I decided I should do race. I had already studied a lot about the ways that society sees gender, so I decided that it was time I mixed it up and studied something that was a little bit outside of my normal comfort zone. I loved reading Americana. Besides Things Fall Apart, I'm pretty sure that it's the first book I've read set in Africa that does not revolve around colonialism. Not that books about colonialism don't have merit, but there's an importance to having stories about Africa that are not told through the perspective of Europeans. The book, which centers around Efemelu and Obinzi, two people who are in love moving from Nigeria to the United States and England respectively, reveals the importance of personal identity and how hard that can be to establish when you're a person of color living in the United States or Europe. I loved reading that book, and it made me even more excited than I was before to study race in the media. I was a little bit horrified when I began to research the media's role in how we understand race. There were some things that I had already learned about. I understood Black stereotypes in the media and how they have negatively shaped how we view racial minorities. In one of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's TED Talks, she discusses racial stereotypes in the media. Her take on the issue was brand new to me and completely caught me off guard. She said that the problem with racial stereotypes are not that they are untrue, although this is oftentimes the case. The problem is that they are incomplete. Another good take on stereotypes comes from psychologist Stuart Oskamp, who said, "Stereotypes develop and persist because they are useful. They reduce the tremendous complexity of the world around us into a few simple guidelines, which we use in our everyday thoughts and decisions. However, the simpler and more convenient the stereotype, the more likely it is to be inaccurate, at least in part. Stereotypes are perpetuated often for people of color and cause society to limit what people of color can do. This harms everybody in society, not just those who are being marginalized." I also understood that media representation for people of color is important. However, I had never learned about symbolic annihilation. Because we view media as a reflection of society, what we see in the media is what we value. Lack of representation or negative representation of minorities devalues their place in society and is another form of oppression, and that is why movies like Black Panther are so critical in society. I saw Black Panther twice in theaters, and while I loved the movie, I know that I can't completely understand the impact that it had for Black people. And this is because I grew up seeing myself in the media. I saw white women who were lawyers, doctors, superheroes, villains, and anything and everything else that exists. It is so important that movies like Black Panther exist because they show minorities not as stereotypes, but as dimensional, real people. I also never realized that mainstream media is more likely to portray Black families than white families when covering issues such as poverty or family instability, and that warped representation makes people less sympathetic to social programs like welfare. Nor did I realize that on true crime shows, police officers are significantly more likely to use force on young racial minorities than young white suspects. These quote-unquote true crime shows cater to their audience's perception of crime and normalize the use of force on racial minorities. This was all a serious wake-up call for me. I thought that I understood media and the way that it shapes how society views race, but I quickly found out that I was wrong. This whole project made me realize how susceptible we all are to manipulation by what we see. We have placed so much stock into what we watch and consume that we end up believing crafted stories over reality. Both the media and media consumers are at fault for what is happening here. It is on the media to look in the mirror and thoroughly evaluate what they are portraying and the real-world implications that holds. However, it is also on media consumers to go beyond what they see on television and not take everything at face value. To solve this problem, the media needs to act, but media consumers need to demand action. While it was hard for me to come to the realization that I do not understand media's effects on society in the way that I once thought, I am glad that I got this harsh wake-up call. It is honestly a little bit embarrassing to admit that you were manipulated for so long, but we never grow as a society until we are able to honestly reflect on our values. Because of this project, I believe that I will be a better citizen, a better media consumer, a better future reporter, and, most importantly, a better person.